a nut you can play with outside.
PSP. It's like a nut you can play with outside.
This was the greatest era of gaming. You clicked on this video, so chances are you broadly agree with me, but have you ever stopped and wondered why? Why specifically was 2000s gaming like that? There's a pretty specific reason why. There was a time between the years 1998 and 2012 where the video games that highlighted the industry were fundamentally sincere. Now, sincere doesn't necessarily mean better. It would be foolish to argue that any of the platformers or shooters of the 2000s felt better to play than, say, Ori or Doom Eternal. I say they were sincere because the mainstream games from this era were built on not just the desire to subvert or iterate, but to truly create. They were not widely cynical of audience expectations. The games were exciting to play because they were unmistakably excited to exist, and the same cannot be said about modern mainstream releases. That's not to say they're bad, just that many of them lack spirit. How we went from an industry that once sought to innovate and foster new experiences to one that now stagnates with greed and/or cynicism was an upsetting process. Why did games stop hitting different?
Fight!
The optimism that drove the innovation within mainstream games of the 2000s is a result of its culture at large, and the woes and wonders that came with it. Y2K, a word that is now used to describe the visual identity of things from the late 90s to mid-2000s, predominantly technology. It's an aesthetic that encapsulates the excitement and fear for the future at the time. The limited yet seemingly limitless technology of the time inspired creatives to throw stuff at the sky and see how high they could get it. This was especially true for game developers. Art direction in the mainstream games was far more varied and apparent at the time. This came as a result of the restrictive technology and the constant cultural push for innovation. Splinter Cell and Mafia look very different despite both of them going for a realistic art style. Because their hardware was working with such low resolution and memory sizes, they had to prioritize the realism differently. This ultimately created visual identities that were distinct and memorable for them. On the opposite end, stylized visuals were more common for mainstream games in general at the time, subtle or otherwise. Creativity and innovation was king for graphics, because the sky was the limit. A developer might have asked the question, what if a game looked like a comic book? The result would have been a mix of ambition and compromise that created something unique and memorable. Now for a modern game, the developer and the public would just call that style cel shading and keep about their business. This is why games don't feel as memorable and flavored now. I think it is a creative failure on game developers that consumers use restrictive technical terms like cel shading to describe a game's graphics. It feels like there's not a desire to wonder what something could be beyond its technical limitations. And this started at the top and has seeped down into the public. Everyone has slowly become more and more cynical about what could be. What if is not a common saying in this hobby anymore. It is an overly derivative and poorly written Disney Plus show. These studios don't seem to be creatively striving towards anything outside of the box of video game genre and trope. Make it the Dark Souls of cozy games. Because of the technological and cultural ambition sparked by Y2K, the art and creative work that went into video games was also ambitious. To not just push the bounds of what games are, but to defy what entertainment could be, on a micro and macro level. This was evident in the emerging game genres and subgenres of the time. The console first-person shooters, good peripheral-based video games, math, the Souls-like, the third-person shooter, the stylish action game, the looter shooter, and there's probably a handful more that I'm missing. And the specific origins of these genres doesn't matter as much as the circumstances they were created in. These explorations of what games could be was largely influenced by the desire to innovate and the overall excitement surrounding the future. Cynicism was not the status quo. All of this is part of the reason that video games hit different back then. But there's another part that was arguably more important and more memorable: the marketing. Chances are you remember a song or jingle that was used in the advertisements you were exposed to regularly as a child. Marketing intends to capture your mind and attention. Successful marketing campaigns may do one or the other, but the truly exceptional ones capture both, along with your soul. These are both advertisements that PlayStation ran for their relevant consoles in their respective times. Now, if you look closely, you may begin to notice a few stylistic differences, but the variance in color grading and direction between the two isn't necessarily the most crucial distinction. The PS5 ad is telling the audience what's going to make them feel, and the PS2 ad is telling them what they will feel. One is selling the vehicle for a fantasy, and the other is selling the fantasy itself. The marketing of this era sought to entrance the imagination of potential players, provoking them to be just as excited as the people making the games, begging them to ask, what if? What could a game be? What's the potential of this medium? They captured the player's desire to imagine a future of today, where all they could do is live and say, what if? They captured their soul. Oftentimes we remember the marketing of a thing more than the thing itself, but when both the marketing and the work coalesce under the same guiding principles, a product becomes more than just a resonant object or work to be consumed. It becomes an epoch. So what happened? Technology integrated into every facet of our lives, isolation, sedentary living. Engaging with media became a form of existence in itself. The world became connected through technology from the mid-2000s to present day, and as such, it became smaller and smaller, leaving less room for wonder. Games stopped hitting differently because technology went from a vehicle of endless possibility to a cage, and the games of the past and present reflect just that.